carabiners for sport climbing. Your time is valuable, so I'm gonna try and get through these quickly as possible, making sure that you're leaving this video with all the information you need to understand carabiners for sport climbing. Talk about the variations. Size. Obviously, there's different sizes of carabiners. As you can see here, there's big differences in sizes of carabiners, and they make even bigger ones. Why size matters? The way I think about this, size matters in that it's relative to both of your hands and how you're handling it. Handling plus versatility. And when I say versatility, I mean the ability to be used for lots of different things. So munter hitches, clove hitches, things where you have the rope running over the carabiner multiple times. Having a larger carabiner usually facilitates that. That being said, sometimes a smaller carabiner can be better for certain instances. The size of it does affect its ability to be used in different ways. For sport climbing specifically, honestly, I don't think about weight that much because you don't have that much gear. Next is shapes. Let's take a look at them. The main two that I use in my sport climbing are HMS or a pear shaped carabiner, and this is called an offset D carabiner, but usually people just refer to them as D-shaped carabiners. Pear shaped, D-shaped, HMS is generally best used in a scenario where you have the rope running over it a few times, like clove hitches or munter hitches. Depending how you were trained and what you do in sport climbing, you probably won't be using those too much. I often try to use a round stock, which you'll learn about later, HMS for my master point and my anchor, just personally, but you're more than safe to use a D shape. Honestly, you can modulate between the two. The D shape kind of fixes whatever is pulling on it in a very specific location, which also means that the rope is running over it in that spot a lot. It actually starts to wear out that spot of the carabiner. The HMS also, this is important to say, in my opinion, the HMS works better for rappels. The D shape just kind of pinches the rope in a weird way, so I usually have one of those on my tube style device. Oval carabiners as well, I don't have any here. They're better for rigging and haul systems and stuff like that, things that I don't do sport climbing. I'm trying to think of people that I've seen sport climbing with oval carabiners, other than like maybe some old school cats. If you look at everything I have on the wall here, they're all just different variations of those two shapes. Like even the ones on the quick draws are offset D-shaped carabiners. Bang, bang, bang. There is some weird shapes. Maybe I'll cut in a couple pictures of these like super weird shapes. I don't really mess around with those. They're usually really specific to a certain use. That being said, I have this guy that I use for my gree-gree. We'll talk about him later. If you had to split it into just three, HMS, D, oval, sick. I just rock the HMS and D in different variations. So that's your shape. Okay, gates. The part that opens and closes is called the gate. So you have the basic non-locking carabiner, and then you have locking carabiners. So whether they're locking or not, difference between these, this would be a single action because there's one distinct action opening and closing it. Spin lock or a twist lock is considered a double action because there's two actions that you have to do to unlock it. If you imagine it in the locked position, I can't just push on it. I need to spin, this would be the one action, and then I need to push, so that would be the second action. Get my hands free to get the triple action going because this one is way harder to open. You have to go down, twist, and then open it. Action number plus I'm gonna say type of lock. Twist lock is a manual lock. Auto locking. Bounce back into the locked position. And there's some double actions that do this too, which makes them really great for handing a carabiner to a beginner. Show you a quick example here. So this is the carabiner that I use on my gree-gree, and it's only a double action. So this one's kind of on a spring. So if I twist it and then open it, when I let go, it snaps back and it twists back. So it won't open again. I didn't have this for a long time, but I like it now because I can take people who haven't been climbing and I can hand them the gree-gree, and once they clip it on, I don't need to squint. One of the benefits, plus when I throw it on, it takes less time than spinning the gate. I used this guy for a long time on my gree-gree. Not a huge deal. They are more expensive, like the triple actions and auto locking double actions. If you're going into cold weather, if you're ice climbing, there's like ones that jam up quicker, but we're talking about sport climbing, so let's stay on track. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about stock. Stock is the shape of the carabiner all the way around the metal. So if you think about the circumference or the surface area all the way around any given section of the carabiner. So if it's a completely rounded circle, we call that a round stock. When there's in cuts, making the surface area not a completely smooth circle around, that is an I-beam. And that's basically the two main stocks. I'm sure there's different ones, but those are the main ones. And then you'll see hybrids where there's a combination of the two. You don't always need that round stock, so you might as well scrape off the weight while you can. But whether something is running over it or not is gonna make a difference on whether you want a round stock or not. For sport climbing, single pitch sport climbing specifically, for anchors, when you're building a point where the rope is going to be running over and you're climbing over it, you probably want a round stock at the base of your carabiner, whether it's a D shape or it's an HMS. If you're only using it as a personal anchor or something where material isn't running over and there's just a small amount of it, you may be able to get away with an I stock and save that weight and probably money as well, depending on the carabiner. But that's the difference between round stock and I-beam. I guess I should write this on my fancy little board here, eh? Extras. There's a bunch of weird carabiners in existence that have weird features. I think the one that's used the most in sport climbing is ones that are made for your belay device. And honestly, I didn't have one of these for a long time, but I do now. This is the one that I have. It's DMM. I think it's called a Rhino. But basically you clip it on here and then it prevents the gree-gree from sliding around and cross-loading. Cross-loading is when something is pulling this way on a carabiner rather than this way. Carabiners are a little less strong this way, but honestly in sport climbing, we don't produce that much force usually, not a big deal. It's mostly just annoying. Like when I had other carabiners that I was using with my gree-gree, when it would go loose, it would sometimes just slowly roll over to the side. And then when it loaded, it just loaded in a weird way. Not a safety consideration, but it was more just an awkwardness thing. So eventually, actually I was making a video on carabiners and I was like, oh, I need an example. So I purchased this one and I've been loving it for sport climbing. I don't like the ones that kind of fix the gree-gree in a certain position. So there's some carabiners that when the gate opens, it like opens a little hole so that you can wiggle the gree-gree in and then close it. I'll chop in a picture of one of those. I personally really don't like those because you have to take the gree-gree on and off twice for every climb, depending how you're doing it. And it adds like 10 seconds to either one of those. And then across the whole day, if you're doing, 6 or 7 climbs with a few people, it just adds so much time to the day that I don't like. I don't like those carabiners, but that's just me. It's just my opinion. So that's carabiners. Hopefully this helps you or maybe just gives you some other ideas about how I think about carabiners. If you do want to join a community of climbers who are talking about this and learning about it, I'm there answering questions and I'd be happy to answer yours. The link's probably below this video. Thanks for watching. Farewell.